We'll go ahead and get the meeting called. I'd like to call the regular city council meeting for the city of Alpine for Tuesday, January 5th to order. If anyone has any comments that they would like to make, please email your name to Gio Calderon at gcalderon@ci.alpine.tx.us, and he'll make sure we line up the opportunity to hear your comments during the meeting. And with that, having called the meeting to order, I'd like everyone to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. As we vote there. I pledge allegiance to the
flag
of the United
States of America,
and to the
and the
republic
republic for which it stands,
one nation,
one
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The Texas flag.
Honor
the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one indivisible. Thank you. Okay, City Secretary, do we have a quorum and proof of notice for our meeting today, please?
Yes, sir, we do have a quorum, and the notice was posted on December 18th, 2020 at 4 p.m.
Great, thanks very much. And I know there was a little bit of consternation getting out the detailed agenda. Thanks, Gio, wherever you may be on the net there for getting that taken care of. I'm glad you're feeling better. Hope the family is doing well. Let's see, do we have any public comments thus far?
No public comments were received to me.
Hey, Gio, thank you so very much. Let's see, we're still waiting for the mayor to get on board, so we'll continue on with the agenda. Again, if anyone has any public comments during the meeting, don't be bashful. Email to Gio and we'll get you scheduled out. Item number 4 is presentation, recognitions, and proclamations. There are none. And item number 5 on the agenda is the reports. The mayor has none. The city attorney has none. So city manager, welcome back and the floor is yours.
Great. Thank you. Councilor Stevens, let me go ahead and start sharing my screen here. All right, Gio, can you see my?
Yep, I can see it.
All right. I'm going to presentation mode with it. You can see that?
Yes, looks good.
All right. So let's start a little bit with COVID. What a way to ring in the new year. Well, hang on 1 second. Back up. Happy New Year.
There we go.
A little celebration up front. We got out of 2020 and we're now into 2021. So really excited about what's in front of us this year. Relative to COVID, I think goes without saying, everybody's tracking what's happening at the national level. We see certainly the rise in case counts. We also, see the rise in the death counts and, look at hospitalizations. The data that I produce on the slides or demonstrate on the slides are Texas specific. One of the things on this particular slide that I like to look at is that, we are getting good testing out there across the state. On the flip side, hospitalizations are up. Now, normally this time of year, flu season, pneumonia time, hospitalizations do go up. And so it's important that each region and each community really looks at the capacity within their hospitals. And then across the network too, if they've got to transfer across the state. So the other piece, if you remember back on December 1st, that deep red was in the western part of Texas, specifically Brewster County and in some Presidio County, Culberson County. We see now that the case counts in this part of the state have come down a little bit. So I think that's a tribute to several different factors. But, one being conscientious awareness of people, and we have had a lot of folks signing up to go for the tests, and behaviorally working through social distancing, wearing a mask, and things of those nature that are important to keeping the infection count down. Certainly the 5 metrics we like to follow: the hospital bed occupancy, the new infections, the reproduction rate or the R0 rate, and our positivity rates, along with our average weekly testing. It was interesting when I pulled the stat this morning in this chart that I typically show. The daily new cases are down from where they had been. If you remember, a month ago we were up on deep red. That's come down a little bit. In our infection rate, or that R0 rate for Brewster County, is down below 1, and that's a really good sign. Now the positive test rate at 100%, that doesn't jive. I think that's an error. Not everybody testing is positive. Now our ICU capacity used, that somehow the data didn't pull correctly onto the website, but I will tell you that there's 4 hospitalizations right now. So we know at 25 hospital beds, 4 were under 30%. So we really would be in the green in that area. So, and of course the Facebook page that Brewster County populates, we see the active case counts at 74. What they posted yesterday is there was 3 hospitalizations. Stephanie reported this morning that we had 4 hospitalizations. So there must have been one that occurred yesterday. Moving forward, interesting slide here. So Ross is at 000. Now I think the student body, because none of them are on campus, that speaks to the 0, but nice to see that the faculty and staff have gotten back down to 0 on campus. So really pleased to see that. On the CV team call this morning, we do know that our school district here is back in session. As of today, there are 3 active cases on the AISD family. Those 3 are all staff members. None of them are students. So Becky reported that out this morning. Also, testing tomorrow, Wednesday morning. From what I'm hearing, there's going to be a lot of people showing up. So if get there early, sign up. If you get there middle of the morning, chances are you might have to wait. Let's be patient. And Chief's here. I think Chief will have an officer doing the rounds over there to make sure, from a traffic control perspective, we're managing that well tomorrow too. We also talked about the status of the vaccinations this morning, and right now it's the first responders. So think of our fire, EMS, police, the key hospital staff. Those vaccines are being administered through Linda Molinar's group, the clinic across from the high school. And Chief Martin, I know, has reached out to his team on vaccinations. And then we reached out again to Mike Scudder this morning to ensure that the fire and EMS. And then I know Chief followed up with Mike too. So that's the first wave. The second wave of vaccinations will go more to like some of the rural healthcare clinics. And one of the things we talked about earlier today is how do you get some sequencing of understanding, where in testing order does the state of Texas expect the administration of the vaccination. So we'll continue to monitor and manage that here and make sure as they become available, especially the general population, they know how to queue up and can get those that want to get the vaccination can go ahead and do that.
Eric, what's the timing for that in terms of information, so that when people ask, we can say, hey, wait a week, wait 2 weeks, and here's how the information is going to be distributed?
Right, so that question came up this morning.
Oh, good.
Relative to Linda on when is the second wave going to roll out.
Yeah.
She does not know. And the first wave that they got, the communication was not very robust. And so they're trying to work back to get an understanding on when the second wave of vaccinations will come. My sense is if we tell people 2 or 3 weeks, that would be too aggressive. I think we'll get the second wave within a couple weeks of vaccinations, but then for the general population, are we looking at February or March? I'm just not certain on that. I did read an article this morning that was talking about needing 1,800 people just to produce the vaccinations. And so I don't know if the companies are feeling some of the manufacturing of it, that shortfall of resource to manufacture. Mayor and I were speaking this afternoon as well about the administration of the vaccine, and when they opened the vial to there's a very short life of that vaccine, so they've got to have enough people queued up to administrate it.
Yeah.
Otherwise serum gets wasted. And all of that, Linda was very on top of it this morning. I was impressed. I mean, she's really working back with all of the first responding agencies. She's pushing hard on making sure they get queued up so we get all of our allocation administered, with the hope that will queue us up quicker for the next round. I don't know if we're going to be looking at older generation versus younger generation in round 3. I think that's a question that's been coming up as well.
Eric, I do have a question on Linda having access to the vaccinations. Is she concentrating just in her Alpine office, or is she also going to do them for the distribution between Presidio and Marfa and Alpine?
Yeah, Presidio, Marfa, and Alpha.
Okay.
Yeah. And all the way up to Jeff Davis as well.
Oh, okay.
So they were very quick to respond and get tested. So we've got that. One of the other notes I wanted to make mention of was relative to our Civic Center. One of the things that we learned as we progressed through December was that our Civic Center is a 51% facility. And so when that attestation was signed, closing the bars, that effectively closed the Civic Center. Now, we did learn this afternoon in working back with the person who holds the alcohol permit that he has voluntarily suspended his license. So we can now use the Civic Center and be in compliance. We're still working through the details on whether alcohol can be sold or not, or whether we know it can't be sold, but can people give alcohol away for free? So we're trying to button down that question. We don't know how long the order will be in place, keeping the bars closed. So we'll continue to manage that and keep council and the community informed. We do get calls probably every day relative to the use of the Civic Center. Any other questions on COVID, or are we solid there? So let's move forward a little bit with part of how I wanted to really shape up at least the city manager report as we kick off the new year is really a look at what are some of the core items as a community that we're working towards to help shape our vision and our strategy as a city moving forward. And 2020, we really got into a lot of detail about COVID, and that was right, and it was important that we did that. As we emerge into 2021, I think it's very important that from a council perspective and our key administrative staff, that we're grounded on the priorities, we're grounded on what we're trying to do with ordinances and things of that nature, because that's really what shapes the community, right? So I had flashed this slide up a couple of meetings ago on some of the key ordinances that we're working on. We'll talk a little bit more in detail on at least one of them this evening, the short-term rental ordinance. but also, things like noise, our utility billing, how we handle shipping containers in the town. Shipping containers to me really relates to our zoning and our property zones out there, and where do we want specific entity, types of buildings, and where don't we? Lighting ordinance, there's always been a large push in our community relative to dark skies. And so how do we best handle dark skies? We've had a couple workshops and really had quite a bit of engagement from the community on methods and strategies. And so, I wanted to flash this back up this evening just to kind of make sure everybody was aware of some of the key ordinances, and use that as a segue to really step into some thoughts around key city priorities. And I can't jump on priorities without really hitting some of the key accomplishments. And I did send out an email yesterday to council, and I posted it on the website as a city manager blog. I simply hit, probably 10 or 12 of them here on this slide this evening. I'm not going to read them out one by one. But what I would tell you is when I sit down and think back on 2020, I say, wow. I mean, we really got a tremendous amount done. And I think, that builds a good foundation for what we want to accomplish in 2021 and beyond. And, one of the pieces that we talk a lot about, and I know Lorena's here this evening, she looked up as I said her name, but, she handles our human resources, and employee retention is very important to us here at the city, because if we don't retain employees, then we continue on into this training mode all the time, and our production is lower, and our citizen satisfaction is lower too. So we've really worked hard at that this year. We'd love to be at zero, where the only turnover we have is when people retire, but we recognize that that's not entirely possible. But to have a close to 42% reduction from the previous year is certainly something for us to hang our hats on. And, I think what we'll see with Scott here this evening, and he'll talk about a couple of the key things and advancements that they've made on the utilities side. That really helps us build core infrastructure that allows the community to grow. And then we think about the work that Eddie and his team are doing on public works, that continues to make for a better community. So, as we think about our 2020 accomplishments, and then we talk about priorities for 2021, and I simply showed this as a suggested list, and I'll jump to the bottom simply because in my mindset, one of the things that would be healthy for us to do is to have, call a little workshop where we sit down as a group with the pure focus of saying, what are our real priorities here as a city? As elected officials, you certainly are hearing from community members. You've certainly run for these positions to, invoke some level of change and direction within the community. And I think as we get grounded on what that is, that will help us with our goal setting, as well as the work that we're doing from an administrative perspective. The other thing that I would say is, we spent quite a bit of time back in 2015 and 2016 on the vision plan for the city of Alpine. And we brought in a lot of community members on that and came out with 13 key items that we wanted to work towards, mostly relative to our downtown environment. And I think, we're 5 years beyond that now. And so it's good to use that document as well to say, what's still relevant and what do we need to continue to work on? What do we need to improve upon? What do we need to redirect on? And so my suggestion is that before our council meeting on February 2nd, that we target that 3 to 5 p.m. hour just to focus on not just these priorities as I suggested, but the priorities that you as elected officials deem, and then start doing some prioritization on that and make sure we're all in alignment. I know I go through the budget survey every, June timeframe, and then we do a couple workshops. But to me, laying this foundation so we know collectively what we're really targeted at and what we want to go work towards, not just this year, but, over the next 5 to 10 years. This is going to be really important. So if council is agreeable, then I certainly will schedule that additional time on Tuesday, February 2nd. So does that seem reasonable?
It's reasonable from my standpoint, and one of the things you might do, Eric, is to help council, since not everyone from a budget standpoint was in the middle of that, is send out at least the budget priorities we agreed on for setting this fiscal year. At least it gives a baseline about where the current funding allocation is. And because one of the outcomes out of it, maybe council looks and says, oh, this is what the budget is based upon, given what we know now, we may want to do a budget amendment, which council can approve to shift some priorities if out of that session, there comes a change in priorities.
Perfect.
So I think that'll be very helpful for everyone.
Perfect. I'll do that.
The one thing that I don't see up here that I think will be important is we've got to get our boards and commissions back up and running.
Yes.
That's a consistent feedback that I get is, because, I talk, council, we meet, doesn't matter what's going on, we meet.
Yes.
But our boards and commissions, many have not met since March.
Right.
And so, one, there's a loss of opportunity to bring in those boards from things that need to go on, and then we council lose the benefit of that. So we got to figure out how to support getting those back up and running.
Yeah, and that's such a great segue into the other chart. Thank you for that. And here are our current board and commission members, and I think you're spot on as we identify what those real priorities are, and relook at the boards and commissions here, relook at the people that are on them.
Yep.
And ask them for a renewed commitment.
Yep.
That they do want to work and they do want to invest time in it.
Yeah, there's two up there that I look at. One is building and standards.
Mm-hmm.
Given that David Hale's on board, we put that in place, 4 years ago now, aimed at giving teeth to the building inspector. I'm not sure if that's still needed or not, and do we make it go dormant or not?
Right.
I think the other one is beautification, environmental. I know we got a bunch of people that want to go, but we got to figure out how we go put that in place. And my sense is that's in part Scott, even though it's not a utility side, but certainly Adelina. So we just got to get that spun up as well. And I think
Right.
It's probably time, even though we've got elections coming up, in May. It may be time that we schedule in March to get all our boards and commission members back in place to give them kind of their roles and responsibilities. So they're at least operating moving forward, and then depending upon how numbers play, they can bring the new players on board.
Right.
That's important.
I agree. So good. Well, we will integrate as we work through those priorities. That'll give us a good idea on these boards and commissions, which stay intact, which, do any of them go dormant?
Yep.
And then we can systematically go back out and ask for recommitments of people that are on them.
Yep.
And, one of the things that I think is important, see volunteerism, it's that double-edged sword. You need volunteers, But I always hate to press somebody and make them feel obligated, and then they're not willing to put any work into it.
Yep.
And then that becomes an embarrassing situation, and we certainly don't want to create that culture. We want folks that want to invest some time because, maybe animals are important to them. Like I think of Patsy Culver, she's going to provide a presentation for us on the 19th on what they're doing with trap, neuter, and release. We know animals are important to her. So, good.
Okay, I'm back.
Welcome back.
Rick, thank you very much for taking it over. I had some Zoom issues here, but Happy New Year to everyone.
Happy New Year.
And commenting on these commissions, Ward 4, since we have a newly elected council person, he could start almost immediately seeking volunteers for these positions. I notice there's 4 or 5 vacant positions in his ward. Everybody pretty much has like 1 or 2. So I think Martin has his work cut out for him right now.
Yeah, I bet you're right. I see this in our
But he's going to hit the floor running, I know.
Yeah.
But yes, it is important that we get these board and commissions vacancies filled. It's crucial to the running functioning of the city. So,
I think now's a good time. I mean, it's the new year. There's a lot of people that are making recommitments, whether to their community or to certain activities, and they're willing to devote the time and the effort and the energy. So, good. Yeah. Okay, I talked about that. All right. So, Mr. Perry.
Great. We'll remove this while I talk. I mumble anyway, so you might not be able to understand. Going through here, we just kind of have some high points for the most part. SCADA update. For those of you who aren't necessarily maybe real familiar with it, what the SCADA is the it's a computer operated program that communicates between all of our water production facilities. Every well has the capability to communicate. All of our ground storage tanks, pumps, everything communicates back and forth and says, hey, I need water, turn on, turn off. Kind of oversimplifying it, but in a nutshell, that's what it does. Now, when I got here, the SCADA system we had was not functioning. As you know, there was water running down 9th Street every other week. So a lot of issues with that. We got it completely switched over now. It's been running for about 2 months. In the last month, we finally got all the bugs worked out. It's been nice and quiet. Quiet. Our overtime has gone to nothing.
So overtime's down, so the guys here are
Now they're happy because they thought they wanted it. After 6 months of hand operating it, I think they're very thankful for it, and they're all being trained on it. So that, we have the capability now to take our laptop out, plug into any of these facilities, and troubleshoot them ourselves. We used to have to pay a company out of Austin, Texas, to come out here. And it's $3,000 from the drive here. So we're really seeing a lot of benefits operationally, but obviously the staff getting a little bit of a reprieve these days and able to focus more on some of the other things we got going on.
And is the wastewater plant on it as well?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, this last couple of weeks before the holidays, the guys were kind of prepping for that. They were taking the vac truck out. We were having to set some more antennas and do a few things. They've got it all set up, and Mr. South will be here sometime late January to implement the headworks on that, if you will, put the mainframe in the wastewater plant. Excuse me. And it should be up and communicating and talking with everything here in town, completely automated by mid-February. Nice. If we don't miss any hitches. And that includes the new aerator and the automated bar screen, just everything down to the temperature of the water.
Wonderful.
So we're pretty happy about that. We were waiting until December. We needed the new budget year to get here to do that. And we wanted to get far enough in to do the labor in the house, try to save as much money as possible. So we're looking good and on schedule for that to happen by February.
So it has the belt press working okay?
It is. Just a note, if you remember about 8 months ago, if you remember me talking about the 1,000 milliliter graduated cylinder, it's a test we do. It's called a settability. Pull the water, let it sit, let the solids go down.
It's got 1,000 mLs. It used to settle at about 900,
Yep.
which means we had no capacity.
Yep.
And as of this morning, we're at 200.
Wow,
So
okay.
the plant is functioning.
Nice.
The operators out there, they really deserve a round of applause because they've done a heck of a job. And also noteworthy on that, Richard Wiley, who works the wastewater plant, passed his sea wastewater in December. So there are 2 out there and myself, who also hold the seat currently. So we're working on it.
Good, good, that's great to hear.
Well, we're real happy with the belt press. It is working very well. 5-year capital planning, a progress update, and we're pretty much on the mark right now. Skater was at the beginning of that because, you know, if none of the facilities are functioning correctly and communicating, nothing is working correctly. We really thought this was going to take a little longer, so we'll be amending this 5-year plan this year to basically throw in a few capital improvements at the pump stations and some other things in-house that we're going to be able to facilitate. So we're on schedule, looking real good with it. On the staffing update, again, Richard Wiley passed his. I sit again for the wastewater on the 7th of this month. And Mr. Blake Edwards will also be testing for his seawater on the 14th.
Nice.
And actually today, everybody who has not yet been through the basic water class had 5 people today. They're started today. They'll finish up on Wednesday. So by March, optimistically, if everybody passes, everybody in the water department will have a minimum of a D water medicine. So really hoping that on times 11 employees. So I'll be pretty happy.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think collectively, your whole certification levels really took a nice jump up this last year.
Yeah, I know we're real happy with it. We went from 2 C operators to 4 C operators, a D operator, and now we're looking to have the rest of the non-certified up to their D level. So real happy with it. They're doing a great job. We had an investigation every 3 years. The TCQ does a comprehensive investigation inspection on all systems. They came November 11th, I believe it was. Everything operationally fantastic. We had no problems operationally. They did find old issues in the records from 2018 and 2019. Most of that was, as you see on here, Charles McCallis, who's a water meter reader in the utilities department, used to do different duties than he currently does, and because his initials was on some paperwork back then, the city did get a enforcement on that. I believe it's $125 fine on that. I'm not exactly sure. I haven't got the ruling on it yet, but that was the only enforcement. The unresolved issues as of right now is the city required to have a minimum of 1 B wastewater operator per our permit. We currently still do not. The city has not, I don't think, for many years.
Yeah.
But I sit for that exam on the 7th. I have sat for it and missed it by 2 points. So I'm hoping that it doesn't happen again. But anyway, we're chipping away at it. From the inspection, we had about 8 write-ups. None of them were violations. They were things that they said, hey, you can go handle this, take a picture of it, send it to us, we mark it off. So we made it through the investigation portion of it real well. From the previous year, we had 11 outstanding issues when I started, and these guys have worked diligently on getting those taken care of. So we're looking real good right now. The only thing we have going on whatsoever with TCQ on the water side, on wastewater, would be the B licensure resolution. So that's the big thing we're looking at on it. Some of the other things that were resolved were some operational records that were missing from 2019. We were able to go back and get the data, put those records together for them, get everything submitted, and we're in good shape with them now on all of that. So
Yeah, I think some of the pieces that I've been happy to see is that, for me, I love the data and I love understanding, what do we have coming in the plant, what's going out the plant. So ensuring that our valves are calibrated, ensuring that we know what our peak flow is day in, day out, because if you have a major rainstorm and it jumps up, then you got leaks back in your infrastructure. But if you're not really looking, if you don't have the right flow registers in place, and so Scott's been able to go back through and get all of that re-implemented.
yeah, we had the last calibration was 2017 here, and so we called in ESS out of El Paso, who came and initially did everything wastewater for us. James site did it on all of our water facilities. So we're good to go, but that's supposed to be done annually. And if it's not, then you can throw your numbers out. And actually now we're finding with the calibrated, actually replacement of the implements. It's so far out of calibration, it would function correctly, but we're finding out that flows are different than what we actually thought they were.
Yeah. Well, and I think, you know, when we look at, well, the other piece too, right, is we've talked recently at some of the council meetings about the outflow from the wastewater treatment plant with that effluent water, and how do we work with the golf course, how do we work with some of the grove projects, and so understanding what our volume is, and then also making sure they're doing proper documentation on the output that's going out. We're doing our testing in the field on that treated water, and how our soil is handling it. So these are all, you know, really good steps I think that Scott and team are making right now. And like I said, I really look forward to I don't want to rush through 2021, but I look forward to seeing where you're at the end of 2021.
Absolutely. Well, hopefully the momentum keeps moving in the direction it has been, making pretty good progress.
So Scott, are there any pending, I'm not sure what the right term is, but TECEQ actions that we've not resolved?
No, sir. There were, a year ago, October, I should say October 2019, at that time, there were 11 violations open.
Yep.
We were able to get all those resolved, I think, by January of 20. Of course, the new inspection rolled around. As of the new one, we had no violations other than on the water side, we had nothing. Anything that was pending on water was just old records from like 2017, some things that we weren't able to find. We've kind of gone back and audited, got what we could together and compiled what records we could and submitted it. The regional director was happy with what they got. So as of right now, we have, other than the Class B, that is the only pending issue with TCQ whatsoever.
Great.
So it's simply an administrative side thing, but operationally, everything is now back.
And you know, truth be told, we have a AA operator who he's actually a city employee. He works 2 to 5 days a week. Just kind of depends on what he's doing. His name's Bill Drake. He actually flies in from that. And we were hoping that it would help with TCQ because in other regions, it's approved and they allow it. Here they're saying it doesn't cover us. We initially did that and had Bill help us with that to basically see to it that we were doing our due diligence to have somebody there. TCQ made the judgment call regionally anyway that it wouldn't work for a full-time operator. However, we're still working with Bill because he's a huge asset to us as far as bouncing information.
Yep.
You know, it keeps me from calling people because I have a lot of questions.
Yep.
You know, 25 years in this business isn't very long. If you call the guys who've been doing it 45 years, they can kind of take what you can do. So we do currently still have him on, and TCQ does recognize him as our operator. They're just saying it doesn't fulfill the criteria of every single week he has to be here 8 hours a day. So other than that's the one pending violation.
Good. That's a huge
And I
improvement.
see a resolution to it. It's just, you know.
2 points, right?
But anybody got any questions on the water and wastewater? On gas, I'll make quick work out of it. You know, results of the leak survey. I've been visiting with Randy on that. Everything went real well. The amount of feet that they average that on has to do with information that changes on an annual basis. So he's currently working on the 2021 model. They believe that's going to change a little bit, probably not a whole lot. It's usually about 38 foot per service. So the X amount of services in Fort Davis, X amount of service here equates X amount of linear feet we have to replace. So they're working on that new number right now. They don't expect it's going to change a whole lot. But, we're on par with doing exactly what we're supposed to be with railroad division on that. So things are looking real good. Work use and volumes. You know, gas has been up. It's been cold. We're doing real good on sales. The system's been holding up real well. I've had very little issues. Nothing keeping everything moving during the cold weather. Been real happy with it. So January through March are kind of the busiest time for gas. That's when you're getting all the information here from the annual reports from the Railroad Commission and the feds and all that good stuff. So we'll have a whole lot of operational information for March. So look forward to that coming your way pretty quickly. I'm also on the DIMP program, which is Distribution Integrity Management. We met our goal for 2020, which is to say Randy and the department met their goal for 2020. We didn't get an audit this year, which is probably good because Marfa got theirs the last 2 weeks of December. And COVID is why they didn't come here. And we're told that if they didn't feel the need to come and make it during 2020, then we're doing something right. So again, we should probably tip our hat to the gas department for taking care of business and keeping us in good shape. Airport. Staffing update. We've had a little bit of change out there in that Abel has come on as airport supervisor since the last meeting. And he's just barely getting his feet, but we got a whole lot to go over in the next few weeks, but looking forward to throwing him to the lines here pretty soon and seeing how well he fares. So we have a lot going on out there with projects. We have seal coating, a lighting project called coming to fruition this year. As of right now, we're on schedule with TxDOT. We have Lochner Aviation. Everything looks real good. We're meeting in February. Lochner's coming up to do a walkthrough and kind of visit with him intensively, make sure everybody's on the same page as to where we're at on the project.
Yeah, one of the things we asked Chris Whitfield from Lochner to do is to do a communication plan back with all the operators, the airport, hangar owners. And so we'll, Abel will help facilitate that meeting too. So just, there will be anxiety, right? With the construction. So we want to really try to alleviate as much of that we can with a good communication plan.
Yeah, we'll be real careful in the planning process to interfere as little as possible with everyone out there in the operations that are currently going on and try to have minimal impact on the daily operations while that's occurring, because progress is painful for somebody all the time. Trying to make it as painless as possible.
Yeah, so seal coat is one thing, but the runway lights, I think that's going to be probably the bigger challenge.
Yes.
Yeah. How you sort that out, keeping the runway open, except for the
We will communicate often upfront, just so pilots can adjust their schedules as necessary.
Yeah, I don't know, Abel, have you met Margaret Moore yet?
No.
So you really want to meet Margaret. We'll talk more about that on Wednesday. Margaret did a marvelous job last time when we did the ramp area. He really got involved in it, so he'll be a good resource. Thursday. So yeah, we'll meet Thursday. So, good.
But everything else been going real well out there. We did have some impacts from the weather. A lot of snow fell real quick out there. In the utilities end of it, we have a plan worked up. We haven't completely got that concisely conveyed to the gentleman out at the airport yet. Riley's done a good job. He actually got it handled and worked with TxDOT and some other individuals who offered to come out and do some assistance. We do have a plan in motion with our department, with the equipment that we've got in the future to work on that sort of thing. We just need to integrate all the individuals involved and actually materialize an emergency management plan, a basic structure of how we want to handle that in the future. It didn't affect us negatively in that we missed any critical flights. Live flights, planes were grounded, they were using helicopters, the snow was big, but the runway still had to be cleaned because you're going to have to use them eventually. Yes. Looking ahead, we've kind of got a better idea of some ideas and things we can do to mitigate that a little quicker. Just making sure continuity of operations out there. CBP was the big, they had to be dug out of their hangar over there because the snow drifted up against the building so bad they couldn't get their helicopters out for rescue operations. So we'll probably need to sit down with them and some other individuals out there and kind of work together on what their needs are and what we can do to try to address them.
Yeah, one of the things you'll have to sort your way through, the sweeper that's been out there, it's dead. And we used to use the sweeper all the time. Someone took the battery out.
Yeah.
So you got equipment issues you're gonna have to work your way through. Sure. That sweeper right now could have been used very easily. Not now, so I don't know what's.
Yeah, I looked at it a few weeks ago. Riley and I discussed it. It looks like it's a boneyard candidate at this point, but we do have a plan B for that. Very good. I'll spring it on you. Okay, good. Y'all have any questions or comments?
Seems like it will be busy. Thank you.
Well,
Appreciate
thank you,
your hard
guys. They're the ones doing all the hard work, but we'll certainly pass it on to them tomorrow and they'll see if there's improvement or anything we're doing wrong, but it's no certainly not a case.
Scott, I've got a question,
Yes,
and this goes back to the weather.
okay.
I drove by there the day after it snowed, and the runway was covered with with snow. So it's basically, I guess, shut down. I didn't see any tracks. Is there any way, and Rick, you might be able to answer this for me, to use the same emulsion prior to snow that TxDOT uses to put on the runway? Would it be safe to land?
Magnesium sulfate.
Yeah, that's what it is, yeah. Yeah, you raise a great question, Andy, and I don't know the impact to the tarmac out there, but that's certainly a good question to go ask.
Yeah, no, I to be honest with you, I don't have an answer to it. You know, we did discuss the last time we had a little snow, some pipe dream ideas we had, but we really never made it beyond that. But let me visit with the folks at TxDOT Aviation and make sure there's not any prohibitions or anything we'll need to avoid.
Yeah, because
Oh, we'll definitely look into that.
yeah, because I had talked to Chris about it because I was driving the highways just to make sure everything was up and running for our folks. And so I gave him a call to compliment him on the great job they did working on the state highways. And I was asking him about that emulsion they use, and he said they manufacture it locally.
Yeah.
That's very inexpensive to make. And he says, you know, if you have any questions, to get a hold of him, and he'll put you in touch with the gentleman that's in charge of that project of making that emulsion. And perhaps we could use that on the runway and keep that runway open for emergencies.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or just anybody that wants to come in, you know, like during those days.
No, I think it's a good idea. It certainly needs something that warrants looking into. Logistically, would be nothing for us to prepare for it and distribute that sort of material. So, let me look into it, and I will get you an answer on that.
Okay, appreciate it.
Yes, sir. All right. Thank you all very much. Y'all have a good evening.
Okay, thank you, Scott.
Yes, sir.
Okay, let's move on to item. Somebody was trying to say something. I guess not then. Okay, let's move on to item number 6, public hearings. We have none.
Actually, sorry, yes, I would. I missed that very quickly. Did you mean the public comment, sir?
No, this was on the updates.
Oh, I'm sorry. Hi, Al.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, this was on the updates on the airport. That's okay, not a problem.
All right,
Peggy.
sorry.
Okay, and we have public hearings. We have none. So the consent agenda, minutes, financial reports, department written reports, board appointments, etc. Notice to the public, the following items are of routine and administrative nature. The council has been furnished with background and support material in each item, and/or it has been discussed at a previous meeting. All items will be acted upon by one vote without being discussed separately unless requested by a council member, in which event the item or items will immediately be withdrawn for individual consideration in its normal sequence after the items not requiring separate discussion have been acted upon. The remaining items will be adopted by one vote. City Manager.
Yes, Mayor. The one item we have on the consent agenda this evening is the approval of the minutes from the city council meeting on December 1st, 2020.
Okay,
So, Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the consent agenda as written.
I need a second.
I second.
Okay, the motion's been made and second. Any discussion? Hearing none, then all those in favor, raise your right hand. Okay, I can't see everybody.
Yep.
Is everybody on the council?
Yeah,
Okay, very good.
5-0.
5-0. Okay, so it's approved unanimously. Thank you all very much. And let's move on to the information or discussion items. Discuss on speed limits in the, I'm sorry, City Manager, I was taking over your place.
No, that's fine. The first item we have up for information discussion is on the speed limits in the community. You remember at the December 1st meeting, we had some discussion on the city streets and contemplating 20 miles an hour. And the request came back to us to look at some data. And Chief Martin was able to pull some data together for us. Also at the coffee with the city manager, chat with the chief that we had in December, we had several residents show up, make some comments. A couple of them followed back with emails that were included in the packets this evening. So you have some of those comments from some of those individuals. And the other piece from that point is we took that data that Chief Barton had derived and put together some points in a PowerPoint presentation that I sent out last month, just with some observations. And then at the end of those observations, we put in some ideas around next steps. And I really wanted to focus this evening more on some of the next steps, because I think that's the important thing. We've got the chief was able to swear in 3 officers this week to fill openings that he had. That allows us to get more feet on the street as part of our traffic control program. And then, continue to receive feedback from community members on how that's working. As we do write more tickets. Interesting enough, when I was out walking with Dad last night, we were walking along Highway 90, and sure enough, across from the university, a police officer pulled over a speeder. Well, I'm assuming he was speeding through town. So we are certainly working on visibility, and then with the new municipal court, the new prosecuting attorney, we can then work that through our court system. And so my sense is that's very important to get the word out in the community about we're serious about the speed limits that we have out there right now, and we're going to enforce to that. And also, part of that too is, Chief's got his team really working a lot of those higher traffic hotspot areas that we know of, like down Gallego, down and around Del Rio, Fort Davis Street, 10th Street, Fighting Buck Avenue. And, instead of just working solely the highways, which we know there's, enforcement that we can take care of on the highways, but also coming back to the city streets too, and ensuring that people are driving appropriately on the city streets. So I think that 4-step approach is really what we're working on right now. And then I think after we have 4 or 5 municipal court sessions and Judge Cole comes out and gives her first report, at that point, as a city, we can look at it and say, how do we think we're doing with our speeding? And that will probably be the appropriate time to contemplate whether we wanted to do anything larger scale. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I agree with that. I'm glad that he did do that report and analysis. And let's wait till Judge Cole gets online, and then we can really get an idea of which streets we really need to concentrate on. I personally don't think we should do mass across the city. I think just the hot spots where people continue to speed, and you mentioned them all pretty much. I think we should concentrate on those. And if there's other streets, then we could expand the 20-mile-per-hour limit there. But again, let's wait till Judge Cole comes in, and we'll take it from there, and we'll have a better handle on the discussion.
So Chief, just a question, lots of warnings compared to citations. What's the criteria your team uses to make those decisions?
It may be 4 or 5 miles per hour over the speed limit. They may have a valid something that they need going to as an emergency that they'll give them a break. If they're, if they're not disorderly, they may or may not get a break. The speeding tickets, the speeding warnings is usually not very much over the speed limit. Officers typically draw a line of 8 to 10 miles per hour over the speed limit. Anything over that, they'll receive a citation. That's typically up to the officer. And so it depends on each individual stop.
Okay. Because my observation, and I see mostly on Holland, most people miss the transition from 35 to 30, and they just barrel on through.
and they're going 40 in the 35, and then when at the 30, they're still going 40 until they squeeze up the stop sign.
A lot of it is tourist,
Yeah.
people not from.
I know there's a lot of them who you recognize, unfortunately, and I know you guys
There
are
are.
on the other end.
And I'm gonna tell you that if an officer is stopped going to give them a warning, they need to give twice. That's enough warnings.
Yeah.
Then they get a citation.
Is what goes on at Fort Davis, does that help the process? You know, Fort Davis, you get the sign, you know, it blinks at you, flashes at you. Are those really helpful tools?
You know, people get used to those.
Okay.
And at a certain point, they disregard it. Okay. So, and they know if there's no one in front of them or no one behind them.
Yeah.
There's no one, they think no one's watching.
Okay. So, okay. Well, I think you guys got a good point. Get them with the data. I think get the court working will help a lot.
Good. Thank you. Any questions?
No more.
All right. Well, item number 2 is mine as well. The short-term rental ordinance, 2021-01-01. We talked about this one at a couple different council meetings last year, and certainly post last meeting, Gio, Keela, Cynthia, and myself sat down with both David Hale and Julie Morales to get a little better understanding of what they were observing and some of the work that they had from a permitting process. And I think probably the biggest substantive change that we had from our last discussion was relative to the fees, and leaving that first application fee at $350, which is in alignment with what our conditional use permit fee is right now. And then subsequent years, it would be at $100. Now that first year, the first inspection would be both the building inspection and the fire inspection, with the fire inspection being mandatory required. And Phil will be certified in doing those here shortly. And then beyond that, every second year forward, they would have the $100 annual permit fee, and then the fire inspection fee, which all businesses will have to have their facilities inspected every year. I think once Phil is finally certified and he's ready to go out there, we're going to set that fee from a council perspective. Now, one of the things we also included in the packet behind the ordinance was a resolution to take that $350 fee for those that are currently operating the program and let their next 2 quarters of remittance for hotel occupancy tax be used to cover that $350 cost. So if we think about our existing operators that are paying their hotel occupancy tax, they're being mindful, good, stewards of that business, then we would simply utilize that hotel occupancy tax as an offset to that $350 fee. And then year 2, they would pay their renewal plus their fire inspection. So that's probably the biggest substantive change. I know we've had some discussion relative to inspections themselves. I know that's come up with several residents or several business owners. Why do we need to be inspected? And I think that comes down to a judgment call from a city. Most of these buildings are being renovated. And so if they're doing electrical or they're doing plumbing work, they're already having a series of inspections go through. where they should be getting those permitted and inspected. Because, at the point that you turn a resident into a short-term rental, you now, different than being able to do work on your own property without being inspected, you're using as a business or commercial property. So those types of activities would have to be inspected. So those were the substantive changes or updates that we made. We simply left it as an information discussion item this evening, not as a first reading of the ordinance. Just open for further discussion with council and get thoughts.
Well, Eric, as I shared with you earlier, I'm not in favor of requiring a building inspection. We don't require for any other business. I think we're overstepping our bounds. Certainly when someone has to pull a permit to get work done, they're going to get the inspection done from that. That's part of the building process. But I think as soon as we start saying we're going to require an inspection, then we need to be either doing that for all businesses or for no businesses. So I would vote against this as currently. I think the change that you made relative to the other issue I raised was insurance, either proof of insurance or release of liability, holding the city harmless. That one works. That's an easy one. So I think the building inspection for me is an issue. The other item is if I'm a short-term rental operator, I don't know what it means, what the IBC means. I understand why the rationale is there, but I don't know that I could explain to anyone that asked me how the IBC applies to parking in different zoning districts, which would be RC1 or R1 and all that. So I do think we need to describe what that means for those who live in R1, R2, R3s are different because they've got to have a whole bunch of different requirements, and then for Cs, how that works.
So we could certainly describe that, and I was thinking a little bit more. Would that be something we would want to describe on the application itself?
No, put that on the application. Yeah,
versus in the ordinance,
I agree. I'm fine with that.
and put it on the application, because that certainly would work well.
Yeah, it just helps people understand it. Because most people have no idea what the IBC is. So describing that, and that way people can look and say, oh, now I got it. I know what it means to me, particularly if they're trying to make a decision about whether to turn their residence or part of their residence into a short-term rental, what that might mean, right? Depending upon what's up there. Right. Anyway, those are my thoughts.
Any additional thoughts?
Yeah, I'm pretty much in agreement with Collins on that. I think he's pretty much on money. We need to really study this, and we do need to make some changes in it. But first of all, we need to consider the safety of the occupant. That's very important. So I we all need to really sit down and get the opinion of every one of the council members on this thing. It's going to have a huge impact on our Airbnbs and whatnot. So we need to really revisit this, Eric, I think, and give it a little bit more thought.
What do you mean by revisit it? I mean, I think we've been talking about this for a year about.
Yeah, I know we've been talking.
An ordinance in place that requires people to register. Simply put, I mean, right now, the ordinance requires people to pay a $350 conditional use permit fee every other
No,
year.
and I agree they need to register, because that's, hot money we're looking at.
And we've got to have teeth in an ordinance that if people don't follow the ordinance, there's penalty to it. Short of that, you could just avoid doing it. And if you get a citation, you go to court and say, well, show me in the law where I'm in violation. So we've got to put a penalty into it as well.
I think actually my issue is the inspection. Result inspection issue, I'm okay with it.
Yeah, and we can take those two sections relative to the inspection and just, pull those out.
Yeah, I'd leave the fire inspection there because we require that
Right.
in the other building.
Yeah.
That's the normal stuff. Yeah, but I think the other inspections, we get through permits. If people are violating and doing, so for example, a homeowner cannot do electrical on their own.
Correct.
Okay, and that's the code. If they violate that,
Yeah.
they're violating whether they're a commercial business or a home. So I mean, that's what I'm looking to say. I think we've got that covered already. When,
I think what we can do, Rick, is I think we can take that one section and instead of saying the requirement of building inspection, say you're required to have all permits according to city ordinance.
that works for me. Yeah, that's fine.
And then that way people know that they have to pull the permit.
That's correct. Yeah, and so then when we do the fire inspection, he's gonna see what's probably not the code.
On the electrical side, yeah.
You know, those are easy to check. So that's why I say, you get the fire inspection, you got it covered, and you've got to do permits anyway. So, I mean, that's the, that, to me, that's.
Okay. We will make those adjustments and should have it ready for the next council meeting. Good.
Council, do you have any input on this? Okay, I guess just those two items, Eric, that need to be taken out.
Good, we'll see you in the next meeting.
Yeah.
Hooray, finally, you can take that off your list.
Okay. Done with that. Let's move on to number 9, action items to be accompanied by a brief statement of facts, including where funds are coming from, if applicable. Action items limited up to 10 per meeting, as called upon by the mayor or mayor pro tem. Citizens are required to state their name and the ward in which they reside. Priority will be given to citizens of Alpine and those who own business or property in the city. Individuals who do not live in or own business or property in the city limits of Alpine will be allowed to speak if there's time available. City manager, first one.
Item 1 is to discuss, consider, and take appropriate action on the appointment of the city attorney for the city of Alpine. We did source applicants and I sent all that information to council on December 18th.
So I would propose that city council discuss the 3 candidates that have submitted their application for city attorney, and based upon that, make a decision about which one to proceed with.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
We have a second.
Okay, we have a second, so the motion is made in second. Let's have discussion then.
So, Eric, we got those candidates in. As I recall, 2 of them are looking for a full-time job. Is that correct? Or can you give us some background about how we got this position, got these applications?
Right, so we posted on TML and on our city website the openings and received 3 applicants in. One was a former district attorney, and the other 2 were external candidates to Alpine. One currently in the San Antonio area, and the other in the Sweetwater area. I had a chance to call all 3 of them that week of December 15th. Visited with them relative to their interest in the role. As you know, as I shared in my notes, the 2 external to Alpine were looking for full-time work, and so I also put in the note there that certainly council was free to call and discuss with any of those candidates, and that if council went down the path of wanting to create a full-time position, it was going to be substantively more than what you approved in the budget this year, and it would require a budget amendment. And so that would have to be contemplated as well. So You know, I think all three of them certainly were qualified, and all three were interested in the position.
I had a chance to talk to visit with actually two of them, Miss Frederick, and she is retired, and she said she would accept a full part-time position. Okay, her husband does odd jobs and whatnot, so she's like the main support. And I also made sure that she understood that we're an isolated town, and if she has a traveling spouse, that very limited to whatever type of pay he's used to.
So Mayor, so
Then I talked gentleman out of sleep. Yes, sir.
no, go ahead, keep going.
Okay, so I don't know who else had a chance to visit with these candidates, because I think there was only two, if I'm not mistaken, by what city manager was telling me. And then I talked to Greg Worthington, and he's out of Sweetwater. He was looking for a full-time position, and I explained to him, really, and I hope I didn't step out of bounds, but we as a city of Alpine cannot afford a full-time city attorney. We're talking, full-time wages and everything, making some adjustments, big adjustments to our budget also. And I also informed him about the amenities that we're limited to in the city of Alpine. And he said, he'd consider that also, as a part-time work. But ultimately, these two I found had a lot of city experience, both being city attorneys at one point or another, one being the mayor. And I'm not forgetting Sarah Wilson also. She has no city experience whatsoever. She was a district attorney, 83rd district attorney. And so in her resume, I saw where she has her law degree and is certified in the state of Texas. But most of her experience was in the nursing background. And here we'd be talking about, working with contracts and whatnot. Just a little bit different than what, she's used to, criminal law. So to me, I think the bottom two, Ms. Fredericks and Worthington, were the two best qualified that could hit the floor running. Of course, Ms. Frederick, I talked to her, and I had also talked to Eric about it. She is not a litigant. She would prefer to send that out to somebody else, which that kind of, I had a little issue with that. I think, you should be able to take care of everything if you're going to be a city attorney instead of just, outsourcing everything else. So, I mean, that's my 2 cents, 3 cents worth on in talking to these candidates. So I don't know who else talked to them or they're on the line or anything like that. But yes, so there you were. I'm sorry, I didn't see you there. So, I guess I'll leave it up to council to ask you questions then.
Yes, sir.
And I hope I made everything, was I clear when you and I had our discussion this afternoon?
Yes, sir. I've had an opportunity to discuss with some other cities on some of the part-time way it can be dealt with. So whatever.
Okay, I just want to make sure that I was on track when we spoke.
Yes,
Okay, council?
That's Mr. Gordon, is that who it is?
So from a council standpoint, we don't know who just spoke. I'm Greg Wortham in Sweetwater, and I spoke to the mayor and to the city manager various times. And so I visited some other cities this afternoon and on the part-time concept. So I'm available to discuss definite part-time examples of how you want to allocate that and what your budget looks like, and what we can work out. Okay, well, no, it's good. I mean, it's hard for us to know because we don't know, we don't see any names on the screen. Okay.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hi, I'm Denise Frederick. I did speak with the mayor this afternoon, and I spoke with the city manager a few weeks ago. And yes, I'm interested. Part-time doesn't bother me because I already, I have benefits from my retirement. So I'm not looking for really any benefits other than vacation at some point. Uh, but otherwise, I I don't have a problem with part-time work, and I do have tons of city experience. And I do have to say that having worked with this in the city of San Antonio and with people who have come from the district attorney's office, it's hard for them to get a foothold in city government. City government and administration is totally different from um, the district attorney's office. So I have over 20 years experience as a city attorney, first as an assistant city attorney, and my last position was as city attorney. I dealt with every aspect of city government, zoning, board of adjustments, um, construction projects, you name it, everything from A to Z in the Texas code. So I'm very experienced and I'm interested.
Okay. Council, any questions?
I just wanted to make a comment on this, Frederick. You do have a lot of experience. Your resume looks awesome. The only issue I have is that you're not a litigator and you're wanting to outsource that, which would be an added expense to us.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear, you were breaking up.
Yes, ma'am. Sorry. Is this better?
Yes.
I said that you have a very impressive resume.
Thank you.
You do have the experience. The only issue I have is that you're not a litigator and you're wanting us to outsource that, which would be an added expense to it.
Yes, unfortunately, I don't want to give you the impression that that's something that's in my wheelhouse, which it is not. I've been a transactional attorney in city government for my whole career, except for prosecution of Class C misdemeanors. I have a lot of experience doing that. I was the sole prosecutor in my last position, and they had a backload when I first got there, and the docket was terrible, and I straightened that out. We got that on track and started collecting money for the city. But as far as litigation goes, I mean, I don't know how much litigation you have. I'm assuming that you probably have some people filing temporary restraining orders, things like that. I can handle TROs and things like that. But when it comes to larger cases that require a lot of litigation experience, I just don't have it. And I'm just being honest with you. And I would have to farm that out.
Okay. Any more questions for Ms. Frederick?
So I think, Mayor, so, we all get surprised along the way. In my view, it's a surprise we have two of the candidates on a Zoom call, which I think is great. But I don't think we're anywhere near ready to make a selection this evening. I think we have some work to go do because walking into this meeting, I understood that two of the candidates were looking for full-time employment and at least one of them asking for a full relocation. I'm hearing a different story this evening.
Right.
And I think what council needs to go do is make sure we're aligned about our expectations relative to the city attorney. I mean, these are not employment jobs. The city does not, thus far, in my 6 years on council, we've never employed an attorney as an employee of the city. They fulfilled the role as a private contractor.
Okay.
And they provided those services. They maintain their own office, their own staff, and all the elements associated with them. So I think what council needs to do is really put together its expectations in a more demonstrable and written way, and then ask each of the three individuals who will put their thoughts together, including, Denise and Greg, and get some feedback, and then really have what I'd call a substantive discussion so we can make a decision. But there's no way I'm going to make a decision.
Right, and I'm agreeing with you, 'cause when I called them, I think they had expectations of full-time. And I says, I've been here, 5 years now, and I've never seen a full-time attorney, city attorney. And so I was being upfront with them and telling them, says, look, we're working within our budget's constraints, and it would be a part-time position. So I think, I think council was surprised in that because, I did ask that because, that's something that I remember that we've never had a full-time attorney. I've been here. So would you like to make that a motion to put in abeyance and until we can formulate some more questions for them and then revisit?
So I'm going to go ahead and amend my motion that we table this so the council could take action to put together a draft city attorney contract that we can get then out to the applicants. And that subsequent to that, council hold formal interviews with the candidates.
Okay, would I get a second on that?
Second.
Okay, we've got a second on that. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, then we'll vote on the amended motion. All those in favor of tabling the motion for further study, please raise your right hand. It's 3.
We've got
Betty?
5.
Yeah,
4, 5. Okay, so the amended motion to table it passes. Now we'll vote on the original motion. All those in favor of that motion, please raise your right hand.
So Mayor, just from a point of order to make sure we all understand what we're voting for, we amended the first motion to table this. So are we voting on now the amended motion?
Yes, sir.
Which is the table.
Right, to table it.
Got it. Okay, just want to make sure.
Okay. Does everybody understand that? Okay, in favor, raise your right hand.
So
All opposed, like sign. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna pull it for the meantime.
Sounds
And I want to thank.
So
Greg.
the first vote amended the motion. And then the second vote was the vote on the amended motion.
Right.
thank you.
Got it?
Hey, Greg and Denise, thanks for being on. It was nice to meet you.
Yes.
Looking
Thank
forward to
you.
further discussions. Thank you.
Thank you all very.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for your time. Okay.
All right. I look
Yeah.
forward to hearing from you.
Okay, thank you very much, ma'am. We appreciate
you.
your time. Okay, let's move on to item 2.
Item 2 is, item 2 is to discuss, consider, and take appropriate action approving the municipal judge contract. That contract was developed with Joey and myself. We used the previous contract the city had as well as others at the state level. So that was in your packet.
Mr. Mayor, I move we
Yes, sir.
approve the municipal court judge contract.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
I heard a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Okay,
5.
got the majority, 5 votes. Okay, motion passes. Thank you all very much. Let's move on to item number 3, city manager.
All right, item number 3 is to discuss, consider, and take appropriate action on the approval of the final bill from Rod Ponton. I had sent you a copy of some notes early in December, and then sent you his bill was in the packet. That was received yesterday.
Councilman Stevens, or anybody.
So I'll make the motion that we approve the invoice from the former city attorney with modifications to be discussed.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion's been second. Okay, any discussion?
Yeah. So this is round 3 of this bill, as I recall, Eric.
Well, this is his last bill
This is the last bill.
after he was terminated.
Okay.
So you approved at the previous meeting, I think, or a couple meetings ago, his bills from 2 months prior to this.
Yep.
And this is his last bill.
Okay. And so, you know, I guess the questions that I have, and this goes back to what was Rod working on? And, you know, there are charges for determining candidate ineligibility, additional research drafting, motion requested by the mayor. I don't know, and there was $640 there and $120 for that. Mayor, did you ask Rod to go work that?
Now, which was, what project was that, sir?
Okay, so it's on the bill dated 11/10, and the other is 11/16. It says council/election eligibility research requested by the mayor.
No, sir, I didn't ask him. I didn't ask him for that.
Also on 11/5.
I'm sorry, and 11/5 as well. That's correct. Thank you. So unless you have an opinion there, Mayor, in my view, I take off 220 plus 640. I take off $860 for those 3. That makes sense, Mayor?
Yeah, no, the only thing that was brought up was the eligibility, and that was that, but I didn't ask him to do any study on it. He did give me some documentation on it where he had gone and did research, but I did not ask him to do that research.
Okay, 0, 2, and the other one on 11/17. So that would be $1,020 amongst those 4. Okay, so that's 4. I
Can I jump in?
by all means have at it.
I have some questions on the charges with the APD versus the BCSO issue. It states here that it's at the request by Counselor Stevens.
Yeah.
And the way I see it, it was more of a, if you're going to, the way I took it was a comment from Counselor Stevens that if you're going to be making an allegation against someone, you need to have something to back it up. I didn't take it as a request by him to go and do all this over $2,000. I may be mistaken, Counselor Stevens?
Nope, you got it. I mean, my fundamental issue on this whole discussion relative to APD was, in my view, what appears to be a conflict of interest, trying to rationalize and justify why APD was wrong in what they're doing, rather than helping support the city understand what its risks were. And in my opinion, he created greater risk for the city than he did to resolve risk. To your point,
I agree.
it was not about trying to say APD was wrong, but that's what we kept getting back is APD is wrong and wrong and wrong, as opposed to hold it. You got to be protecting the city. So
Not only do I agree with that, but I feel that we've already paid quite a bit of money on that issue.
yeah, so if we're to just head down that path. I'm slow on the math. I'm just an old school guy. 3, 6, 0, 3, 6, 0, 1, 6, 0.
160 and another 260. 003, that's 10, that's 13. So 13, 0, that'd be 2, 2, 0. 5, 9, 8, 0 minus 2, 3, 2, 0, 6, 6. Okay, so what I came up with the math was a further reduction of $1,300, which if I add them all together, what we just talked about, that'd be a total reduction of $2,320, which would make the city net bill $3,660.
What was the figure on the APD alone, sir?
APD alone, I had 1,300. I had 260, 160, 160, 360, and 360.
I had 1,980.
You're 1980, okay, help me out with the rest of it.
So on the,
Okay,
did you have 1980 as well?
okay. Hey, I'm not gonna argue. I'm easy on that.
On 11/6.
Yep.
On
Well, 11/4,
11/10,
11/4, 11/6,
Yes.
11/10.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't even go up above.
2 on 11/4, 1 on 11/6, 1 on 11/10, 2 on 11/10.
Yep.
2 on 11, 1 on 16, and 1 on 17.
Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't go
Came
up
out
above.
actually more than
Oh, yeah,
2,000.
I'm sorry. It was,
So what, so who's got the new math?
would you get 2180? The 2 on 11/4, that's 200 and 400. So that's 600 there. Then the 1 on 11/6, that's 300. And then let's see, on 11/10, you've got 360 and 360.
Yep.
So that's 720.
Yep.
And then on 11/11, you've got 200.
360, what about the one on, there's 11/11 and 160 and 11/11 and 200.
That's
Oh, yeah,
We
right.
got that, yes,
So that's
thank you.
360.
Yeah.
You're right, 360.
Okay, so Chris, what do you got?
2,500.
25. Okay, so if we add 2,500 to the 1,020. We good there? So 3,520 from 5,980.
$2,460 pay him.
Okay. Anything else?
I have a question while we're on reviewing these charges. Is there any procedures that are to be followed or whatever for any council member to just up and pick up the phone and call an attorney and have them do research or anything of that nature?
So the attorney works for us counsel, okay, and for the city manager. So we all need to have the ability to go off and do that. But I, to your point, we do want to have a process in place for saying we are.
I think we do, because we got hit with a lot of charges that nobody knew where they were coming from.
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
and a lot of it said, like, mayor's request and all that, you were caught by like, what, I didn't request this.
I didn't hear your comment.
Excuse me?
I didn't hear your comment.
I was asking if there was any kind of procedure that we follow in contacting the attorney, the city attorney.
No, we have the right to contact him, but there should be a big difference between a discussion and saying, hey, go do it.
Yeah.
And I think just discussing it doesn't mean, hey, that automatically gives you the right to go and do all this research. Okay?
Right, and I agree with you that, we are, he is under us, but I feel that in order to clear things up, not just for ourselves, but for the attorney also.
Yep.
That we have some kind of checklist. I mean, maybe run it through the city manager. There are some of these issues that I think could have been resolved by just speaking to the city manager.
Yeah.
The answer would have been the same.
I think we have to watch our times, Chris. There are some times where we as council are going to want to go potentially to an attorney and not hold the city manager. Okay. I think there's clarity and alignment between council and the city attorney about what we're asking them to go do. And I
And I
just,
think,
we had a city attorney we fired, okay? And there's no way I would have ever taken things to that former city manager.
Chris, and I think that could be resolved with an email, requesting, hey, I need your services for this. Okay, then it's in writing, it's documented that, hey, I did request your service. It's, and it's not just a discussion.
I understand that, but where do we fall as far as asking questions and getting charged for them if there's something that the city manager could clarify for us?
But go to the city manager first. If you feel comfortable doing that.
Right, so is there something that we can agree on that, instead of picking up, reaching out?
Well, I think we do that already. We go to city manager first, and then, if it can't be resolved, then, you take the city attorney. But, it doesn't say you cannot talk to the city attorney. But, if it's something that city manager can resolve without going through the legalities of it, then by all means, pick up the phone. It's that simple.
Yeah, I think we have the opportunity in putting together a draft contract that we can all look at to include a simple attachment. It says, hey, city council member, the mayor calls the city attorney. City attorney is going to send the following back if he or she is going to do any work beyond the normal, whatever they charge for a 15-minute phone call. And that's probably the way to work it. That way the council member, the one working it, can say, yea, verily, we agree. If nothing comes back, that's it. And I think that's probably an easy way to work. And I think that resolves, it provides the opportunity to work it, but at the same time, it gets the accountability. Because to your point, on this, there's been no accountability. Now, I will tell you, it's the first time in the time I've been on council that we've actually run into this issue. Our attorneys in the past have worked it well until they went off the reservation. And I can say that I'm Native American. So but I think that's the case. Yeah. So I think we can put that in the language. I think that'll be helpful. Because I do think you raise a great point.
Okay. It's a good point. We need to get back to the motion.
Okay, so the amended motion is that we've adjusted a downward by $3,520, and therefore city council would authorize the city attorney to pay the November bill at $2,460.
Okay. Do we have to amendment to that? Because all it says, discuss, consider taking appropriate action in approval of the final bill. We just changed it.
So Mayor, when I made the motion that we would discuss and consider and amend the bill based upon the discussion. So I just made the amended motion to set the payment to the city attorney at $2,460 or a reduction of $3,520.
Okay, got you now. Okay, got you. It breaks up so bad and it's kind of hard to hear.
Sorry about that.
Okay, no, it's not. It's Zoom. We'll blame it on the Zoom. Okay, so we're gonna vote on the amended motion, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All those in favor of the amended motion, raise your right hand.
So you got 5.
Okay, it's unanimous. Okay, now we're gonna vote on the original motion to approve Rod Ponton's final bill. Okay? All those in favor of that, raise your right hand.
At $2,460.
Okay, it's unanimous.
I know. All right.
Okay, so we're done.
Hooray.
Okay, so now let's move on to number 4, city manager.
All right, number 4 is to discuss, consider, and take appropriate action on approving resolution 2021-01-04, notice of general election for the city of Alpine, May 1st, 2021 election.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
To approve resolution 2021-01-04, the notice of general election for the city of Alpine on May 1st, 2021.
Second.
I'll second.
Okay, motion second. Any discussion? I think there should be none. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Okay, opposed, like sign. It's a unanimous, motion carries. Item number 5, city manager.
All right, item number 5 is to discuss, consider, and take appropriate action on the hot fund recommendation. And, let me read, we're not doing a budget amendment this evening. If we approve the recommendation, we'll come back with a budget amendment. So this would be just an approval of the hot fund recommendation.
Okay, does everybody understand that?
Yep.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion then.
Mr. Mayor, I propose we approve the hot fund recommendation, period.
I'll
Okay.
second.
And motion's been made in second. Discussion.
Yeah. In fact, the way that reads, that's good because and let me just put some context into it. We had a great discussion with our hotel occupancy tax committee in December. We got some new applications in. If you look into your packet, you'll see the recommended budget amounts for 5 different projects. One is the visitor center capital improvement project. The other is the podcast audio walking tour app. The third is the video production and promotion. The fourth is railroad park sculpture. And the fifth is the film production lodging incentive. The last 4, I think if you look at them, are really what I would consider to be no-brainers. They make a lot of sense, and everybody in that committee was very supportive of it. The big ticket item there is that visitor center capital improvement project. And what they recommended was up to 175 on that. In your packet, we included some concept drawings. Actually, Councilor Sandate was out there with us when we were walking the site. It made some suggestions for us as well. And we understand that's a high dollar amount. And I think when we come back to looking at the budget amendment itself, we'll want to come through and be very clear on what council is willing to approve. So I think the way Councilor Stevens stated that if we resolve to approve the recommendation, then we'll come back with a budget amendment and really look deeper into that capital for the visitor center and determine what an exact dollar amount would be on that. Does that sound fair?
That's fair. Okay,
You're kind of our go-to person for the visitor center then?
Yeah.
Well, which is great. No, I think that's super good. No, you've already dove into it, so we'll let you carry the expertise on. Pretty good. Okay.
okay. Any more discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion that Councilman Stevens made, excluding the budget amendment, raise your right hand. Okay, it's unanimous. So motion carries. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. And I will follow back with more detailed costs on that, run it by Councilor Sandate, and then we'll bring the budget amendments back to council either on the 19th or February 2nd. Okay, good.
Okay, let's go to item 6. City manager.
Yes, discuss, consider, and take appropriate action on resolution 2021-01-06, a resolution on the tipping fees for the AISD project. We were able to secure a waiver from TCEQ to go above our allocation for construction and demolition for this current fiscal year we're in. And that's important because that was the only way we were going to be able to receive the construction and demolition debris from the ASD project. With that being said, our building services team between David, Julie, and Tony are being really taxed with this project. Normally, a project of this size, you would have a dedicated building official, but that's all they did was manage this. If we contracted that, it'd be $250,000 contract to provide oversight. We're doing that in-house. We did add Julie to the team. She's doing a fantastic job. So what I'd like to do is take the tipping fees, which will end up being anywhere between 60 and 100,000, our portion of it, and allocate that back to our building services department so that we can ensure that we have a budget that maintains our staffing and any additional work that they need to do relative to permitting. So that's the purpose of this resolution.
So, Mr. Mayor, I propose we approve resolution 2021-01-06 relative to tipping fee for the AISD project, including the allocation of where those funds will go.
Okay, second.
I'll second.
Okay, motion's been made and second. Any discussion on this? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor of the motion, raise your right hand. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you all very much. And we'll move to item number 10. And we'll start with Miss Curry. Happy New Year.
What's 10? I guess we're saying thank you for showing up. It was a good meeting. Thanks. Sorry.
Okay, not a problem. Then we'll move over to Chris.
I want to thank everyone for a very productive meeting. It was a good one.
Okay, and then we'll go ahead and move to Miss Fitzgerald.
Yes, I think it was a very good meeting tonight.
Okay, thank you very much. And we'll go to Martine.
Good meeting. And also I want to say something about the parks. Down there, in Bays Park, the crew is doing a splendid job. Additions to playground materials and benches, it looks real good.
I will share that with you. Thank you.
Yep. And of course, lastly, but not last, or he is last, Mr. Stevens.
So, one, thanks for everyone for participating. We've got a great year going forward. Eric, the accomplishments for 2020, really solid. Despite the impacts of COVID, this city has not missed a beat. And so compliments to the entire team for what's going on. I think it's too bad Scott's taken off already, but the report he gave tonight is a real solid reflection of the leadership he's providing out there as well. And it's so nice to see, particularly with the number of people who are now going after their Class D licenses. We've never been blessed with that before, and that's a leadership. That's what that is. That people are demonstrating. So it's great to be part of the city. Great to see how things are going on. And Abel, you got your work cut out for you, but we're glad you're rolling. So thanks. That's all I got, Mayor.
Okay, I'd like to thank everybody for the meeting. It was a fantastic meeting, great meeting. Despite the pandemic, which started back in March, I think our city council staff, city manager has done a fantastic job to keep the city running. And also with the great budget and all the accomplishments with the streets over at the waste treatment plant. I think overall came a lot of obstacles with this pandemic, but great job, team. I look forward for 2021. It'll be a better year, and maybe we can get to back to some type of normality, not what we're used to, but at least a type of normality where we can move on with our lives. And so with that said, I will ask Councilman Stevens to make a motion.
So, Mr. Mayor, I propose that City Council adjourn into executive session to get an update on the Union Pacific Railroad.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion? None. Okay, all those in favor, raise your right hand. Okay, opposed, like sign. It's unanimous. Motion carries. Okay. And Councilman Stevens, will you make a motion, please?
So, Mr.
I'm not sure there's any motion.
Yeah.
Well, to get
We're in
executive,
We're in.
to either, to get into executive meeting,
Yeah, so, you know,
we're gonna have to get off and get back on again, looks like. Okay, we're back. Is everybody back? Okay, is everybody back?
Can you hear us?
Yes,
All right.
here we go. Now we got it.
Mr. Mayor.
Okay, yes, sir.
No action relative to the Union Pacific Railroad.
What's that again? You faded out.
Four times the charm.
I propose we take no action relative to the Union Pacific Railroad.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion's made and second. And I don't think we need any discussion on this. All's in favor of the motion, raise your right hand. Okay, thank you very much. It's unanimous. We will take no action on that.
Mr. Mayor, I propose we adjourn.
And it's not debatable. We're adjourned. Thank you all very much. You have a great evening and a great week.
Thank you.